afternoon, and welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz. That's right, it's tea time, afternoon tea in some countries and evening in other countries. Where dawn is, it's actually evening right now. So today we're going to share a little bit on the importance of education for deaf children and Dawn's story on why she does what she does in Cameroon. She's actually from Canada, but she's in Cameroon making a difference. So I'm going to just introduce Dawn a little bit on who she is and then we'll get into a strong cup of tea and make a difference. And I will be putting up the link so that you can make a difference today for some of these children in Cameroon. So Dawn Doig is an author, an M.Sc, M.Ed is the author of 15 children's pictures books on a variety of topics, including childhood, hearing loss, bullying, and forgiveness. Digraphical learning English as an additional language and positive self-image. If I've said anything wrong, I'm really sorry, and I'll get Dawn to explain that a little bit more. Some of her books are just plain silly and prone to giggles. She has been blessed with 2 extremely rewarding careers working with children as an audiologist and as an English as an additional language teacher in different parts of the world, including way up north in the Canadian Arctic, Kuwait, England, Saudi Arabia, and Mongolia. Dawn has 2 grown children who live in Canada. She currently resides in Cameroon with her hubby, Bruce, and 2 very rambunctious but adorable female kitties. She gets her inspiration for her children's books from her family, the children she has the pleasure of working with, and general life experience, and her feline friends. Dawn is a passionate baker who loves to share her homemade goodies with others, and she is always ready to head out on the next thrilling adventure with Bruce, and they never know where the wind will blow them to the next. So welcome, Dawn. It is an honor to have you here on Tea Time with me today. And I really have some issues with some words. So if you could share a little bit on the words that I struggled with earlier when I was reading your bio with the audience as you're sharing your story on how and why you do what you do for the children in Cameroon.
Certainly. Well, one of the things you mentioned was that I was an audiologist. I was an audiologist for 23 years. And I did travel around the world with that career, a very blessed, very rewarding career working with people of all ages, infants 2 days old all the way up to seniors in their 90s. So audiology is still very much a part of who I am. I continue to do courses to maintain my certification because, as you mentioned, we never know where the wind will blow us to next. And so there's a good possibility that I may return to audiology. And in my role as a teacher, I switched to teaching 8 years ago. My husband is an educator, so he followed me around the world. So we were interested in staying overseas, and I was very lucky to have some wonderful jobs overseas in audiology, but they're few and far between, so it's not that easy to find a job in that area. So I switched to teaching, and now I follow him. So I followed him to Mongolia. We ended up in Mongolia because the school there was willing to let me do my practicum at their school, and they wanted him. So I did my practicum, and then I ended up landing my first teaching job at that same school. So we were in Mongolia for 5 years, and that was where I had my first experience really with children with dysgraphia. So dysgraphia is a writing challenge. Sometimes these children have difficulty just with holding their pencil correctly, but for true dysgraphia, it goes much deeper than that, and it can be a neurological condition where writing is extremely difficult. So one of my books, Petra Pencil Plans for Pizza, was dedicated to children who have that challenge in particular. So while I'm in Cameroon right now. This has been my second teaching post, again, following my husband. I've had the opportunity to visit a school for the deaf here, again, with audiology still being a passion of mine. And I was extremely disheartened to see how those children were living. We visited the school with 2 of our grade 3 classes. They were doing a unit on celebrating differences, And just recognizing that people learn in different ways, people can be challenged in different ways, but they can certainly have lots of opportunity. So we went out to this school for the deaf, which is about 80 kilometers outside Yaoundé, the city where I currently reside. And the kids are living in an old poultry factory.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so Sister Simone is the Catholic nun who currently takes care of these children. And she's been given land by the government to build a new facility, but she doesn't have the money to build the new facility. So that's what I am trying to help her with. The buildings that they're in they're old, they're falling apart, so deteriorating. The roof's leak. The toilet facilities are basically holes in the ground. The teenage girls have an enclosed area where they can shower, but most of the children just shower with buckets of water on a rough cement platform. So her dream is to have this new school for the deaf and orphanage. Many of these children are orphaned. Parents have died from AIDS, or they have other illnesses here, yellow fever. And so her dream is to have this new facility built. It's there are 5 modules to it. I actually have a copy of the entire project. An architect has designed the facility, so all the costs and everything are not just some dream. They've actually been provided. So module 1 is the new residence for the children, including their toilet facilities and the new classrooms. So this would essentially give them, a very secure, safe, and comfortable place to live and learn. So that's what I'm trying to help with right now through the Go Get Funding campaign that I started, but also through selling my books. I am the author of 15 children's picture books. Writing has been a passion for a long time. I won't say I was born with it, but I did a lot of writing when I was a child. I won several writing contests in a row through our local newspaper when I was in upper elementary school and early high school. So I do enjoy writing. I enjoy sharing my stories. And as you read from my biography, many of my stories are inspired by real life children, our pets, in general life experiences, things that I've seen when we've lived in different places, things I've experienced directly myself. So I just enjoy writing and sharing. And when I see people laugh with the stories that I've written that are supposed to elicit laughter, it makes me very happy. When, I have one book that's quite sad. And when people tell me that it has affected them in a way that makes them think about what's happened in the story and the emotions that it's evoked, as an author, when you're writing, you are expecting a certain kind of emotion or reaction. So when people comment that that's the type of reaction they had, it's very touching and fulfilling. So yeah, I do have a variety of books. Some are on positive self-image. One that I wrote here in Cameroon actually is about our perceptions of beauty. It's called Hairpiece. When I moved to Cameroon, I wasn't aware that a lot of the women and girls wore wigs and hair extensions. Even our little one, 3 years old, I was not aware of that. So me coming from Canada and then seeing that, it was quite an eye-opener for me and made me really think about how we look at beauty, because honestly, the women and girls are absolutely beautiful, whether they have, a lot of our young girls, if they're not wearing the hair extensions, will actually have their hair cut very, very short. At the orphanages, they tend to have them very short because of lice and things like that. But they're still absolutely beautiful.
I never knew that. I never knew that about the wigs.
Yeah, I didn't know either. And I have had a couple of women of color comment on that book because they saw me writing about black hair, if you want to say it that way. And they were quite intrigued that I would write a story about this. But the reviews it has had have been absolutely amazing, even more than what I expected. And it's probably one of the books that took me the longest to write the ending, because I did not want to seem like I was insulting or being culturally insensitive. So I really had to think through not just the story in general, but how I wanted to end it. So so I do have these books available. I appreciate anybody purchasing them to try and help with this cause. A dream of mine, of course, would be to see them in more classrooms. The teachers here at our school do use them in their lessons. The children run up to me at school and say, "Miss Dawn, you're a real live author." And they get all excited. So, but yes,
So where can people purchase your books, Dawn?
They are available extensively online. So they're on all the different Amazon sites. They're on Barnes and Noble. They're on Indigo Canada, Booktopia, Books A Million. Walmart is carrying a lot of them now. They're also available directly from the publisher in the United States. So that's Pennant Publications. But if they look at my Linktree link, I have each book individually listed. And when you click on that, there's a multi-link that shows you all of the different places where they can be purchased. Because in England, they're on Blackwell's, Waterstones, Hive. Trying to think of any other ones.
I don't believe I have your Linktree, so I'll get that from you, and I'll put that into the comments after the show so people can get these books, because I really want to encourage. For some reason this year, children's books have really hit home with me. Maybe it's because I became a new grandma, and it's just so I really want to see books that are making a difference, right? And I really like that you have the giggle in it, because we need to have laughter with our children. Our children are not laughing enough,
Well, this one I read with my nieces.
Oh my goodness, she has a book. I am so if you'd like to.
I have all of them now for the first time, because I made it back to Canada this summer, and I had 7 published in 2020, and I had not seen any of them in print.
Oh my
so
goodness.
when I'm home this summer, I finally have them all, and it was like, wow, woo. So I was reading this one with my great nieces, and it's about flatulence.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't know what that is.
Farting. So my mother had my father convinced for years that women do not fart.
Oh my goodness.
And I just don't like that word at all. So I am kind of famous for making up words.
Oh, that's good. You're speaking my language, because I always make up words too. My spouse always
So Murph is the word that we've always used, because I just don't like this other word.
Yeah. So. I like it. It's different, right? And that's what I like. I love different, right?
So the book is actually full of real life things that have happened. Again, inspired by, our dog, by my daughter, by my father. And these girls were just giggling away, and it just made me laugh so hard to see them laughing. And then afterwards, the older one, who's going into grade 5, was asking everybody to share their Murph stories.
I'm going to be doing that with my grandkids. I'm going to be like, hey, what's your Murph story? And they'll be like, what?
It was so fun.
I like different, right? Because we need to open the imagination up, the mind, and that. We don't have enough of that. We need to change. And I say the weirdest things too. Like my spouse or my kids will be like, "What are you saying, Mom?" I'm just like, "You know what I want to say. It's just my language. Just go with it."
It's really comical to me when I hear my husband use some of my words, right? Like, did you snurf my piece of chocolate? Did you take it, right? they use them because they heard them so much, right? So
they might as well just use them, right? Because they've heard it so much.
What's that dynamic aspect of language, right? And I said, You watch. Eventually, my words are going to be part of the English language, and enough people will hear them.
Oh, that's exciting. So how has your journey really been, like, since you've been in Cameroon? What have you seen, and like what really has changed over there with the pandemic and everything that's going on? like the education?
No, actually, not much has changed here. Life has gone on pretty much as usual.
Okay.
When you think of a country like this, one of the things that, again, that surprised me was the shoe sellers walking around with a shoe on top of their head. I had never seen that before. So they will be trying to sell shoes. So they'll have one of them. Actually, we did see one person with a stack of 6 of them on their head. And then they'll have the others draped over their arms. And they'll basically walk up and down the sidewalks trying to sell their shoes. You'll also see somebody with a stack of towels or bed sheets or comforters, or you'll see the men walking through the traffic with car mats and windshield wipers hanging all over them, right? So in a place like this, shutting everything down is really not possible because the regular people rely on that kind of sale for their livelihood, right? So if you said, okay, nobody can sell bananas at the side of the road anymore, you've got to close down your vegetable stand, you've got to stop selling car accessories, you know, what would these people do? So they did have a curfew for a while. The bars and restaurants had to close by 10, so you didn't have anything open till the wee hours. But I mean, are the statistics accurate? We don't know. But when you look at the statistics for Cameroon, I think they're around 86,000 cases right now. So, you know, compared to even Canada, certainly the United States, there's no comparison in terms of the numbers. But we don't know for sure, you know, how numbers are being kept, you know, and a lot of people feel that because we have malaria here, you know, some of the symptoms are similar to malaria. So do they have COVID? Do they have malaria? You know, so that's a lot of the discussion as well. We certainly have been tested for it here. You know, when my husband got sick, he was tested. They tested him first for malaria, and that came back negative. So then he was tested for COVID, and that was positive. So then I had to be tested, and I have consistently been negative. When we were in Canada this summer, we had to quarantine for 2 weeks. We went when you still had to do the 3-day government-approved hotel quarantine, and then we had to continue our quarantine at an Airbnb. And we had to be tested when we arrived in Canada. We had to be tested 8 days into the quarantine. We had to be tested again before we flew back here. We had to be tested before we left here. So we've had umpteen dozen nose swabs.
I know, right? I think I'm on my 4th one. I'm just like, oh yeah, whatever, just do it.
I think I had 6 within a matter of 2 months. Yeah. And I've been consistently negative. Again, did I have symptoms before or did I have it before he did and I was asymptomatic? You know, who knows? But and that's why people just need to be careful because you don't know who it's going to get, right? And I always said that about hearing loss too when I was working with young people who wanted to blare their music or they're going hunting without hearing protections. Like you could be the one that one blast, you lose significant hearing, right?
That's what happened to me.
You don't know because you don't know your own physiology and how it's going to react to those things. You go to a number of loud music concerts and you leave the concert, your ears are ringing, you know, and that subsides, but you know, gradually over time, you could be the one that ends up as a permanent hearing loss that requires hearing aids. I wear earplugs to every single music concert I go to because even though hearing aid technology is amazing now, really, compared to when I started in audiology in 1990.
we won't mention that, right? We'll just throw that under the cover.
But there's no comparison, right? But I still don't want a hearing aid, so yeah. I wear earbuds. And I mean, we were at Elton John, and I pulled it out to listen. And it's like, whoa, and then it goes, right?
Yeah.
Because I find it when it's really loud, my ears are buzzing, it's distorted, and when I have my earplugs in, it's just lovely. So.
So could you share with the viewers on hearing aids, like, because I've noticed since I've got my hearing aids, I get a lot of ear infections. Is there a reason why there's more ear infections with the hearing aids? Is it because of blockage? Like,
are you allergic to the material? I mean, that would be one of the first things I would ask, because I worked a lot with ENT doctors. So if somebody, like, are you getting an ear infection in the ear canal or behind your eardrum? Because there's different parts of the ear, right?
In the ear canal.
My first question would be, are you allergic to the material?
Okay.
And I did have patients where we had to put a sealant around the hearing aid itself, the casing, because they were reacting to the casing material. So that would be something to ask, ideally an ENT, but you could certainly ask your family physician about it,
Okay.
and then pursue that, because it's not normal to keep having ear infections
Okay.
from.
Okay. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you when I had you on was.
And is there an underlying condition that's actually not related to the hearing aids? But you should certainly have that checked if it's an ongoing problem.
Okay. So what is the youngest age that you've worked with, Dawn, for hearing loss?
2 days.
No way.
Yeah. We have universal, well, in Canada, we have universal hearing screenings in most places now. When I was in Saudi Arabia, I started the program at the large hospital where I was working. I was the head of the audiology unit. So I was responsible for getting the whole unit up and running. And so part of it was establishing the programs. So I had to get the hearing aid program up and running, the cochlear implant program, the oncology program. A lot of people aren't aware that many people who are receiving chemotherapy lose their hearing because of the chemotherapy. So we would do an assessment before they start their treatment, and then also follow them as they're having the treatment to see if there's any changes in the hearing. So we started that program at the hospital. We did a balance program, so testing people who had vestibular imbalance issues. Worked very closely with neonatology, so the preemies, premature babies who are at risk for hearing loss. So we had a screening program in the NICU and in the regular nursery. So all of the babies in our hospital were assessed for hearing. And then if they fail their screening, they need to come for follow-up. Babies can fail a hearing screening, and it's not because they have an actual hearing loss, like a permanent hearing loss, but they may have some effects on the hearing because of just from the birth, some vernix in the ear canal that's affecting their hearing at the time. But yes, I have diagnosed permanent hearing loss on very, very young infants. And the ideal really, in a comprehensive clinic is to have these babies assessed and diagnosed by 3 months and then fit with hearing aids by 6 months at the latest.
Oh, wow.
So, and even in Germany several years ago already now, they were doing cochlear implant surgery on 6-month-old infants. So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, the technology has changed. It's actually amazing what they've come up with, the engineers. When I think of the old hearing aids when I first started in 1990.
There we go, in 1990. We're putting that under the cover again. We'll just slide that in.
But even the assessment tools, some of the assessments that are being done, they didn't exist when I was a young audiologist, and we used to wonder about some of the cases we had coming in where we couldn't explain what was happening with the hearing. And now with the equipment and the tools that are available, it makes sense. Like we have more of an understanding now of what's going on with some of those unusual cases. But audiology is fascinating. You can see how it's still part of who I am. I'm still very passionate about it. I started a school hearing screening program at the school in Mongolia because I did have an opportunity to visit clinics in Ulaanbaatar where I was working, and none of the clinics were fully functional for assessing a young child. So I started a program at our school. The school was very supportive, which was absolutely wonderful. I made connections with local ENT clinics, and then I also established some referral hospitals outside of Mongolia, so Hong Kong, Korea, so that families had the opportunity, if they chose, to go abroad if their child failed the screening and have a full assessment done. And here in Cameroon, I was lucky enough to have a friend who's a Rotarian in Canada. He donated a screening audiometer and tympanometer for me to bring with me here. So at my current school, I do screenings on any of the children who are receiving support from me for English language learning or for learning support through my colleagues who do the learning support. And then I have a referral process in place. So if teachers are concerned about a student's hearing, I can also screen them. So yeah, it's I think it's a really important service to have at a school, and I'm able to do it. So, you know,
So
why not?
Are you the first one in Cameroon that is doing any of this, or is there other doctors that are there doing this?
No, I don't know the extent. Honestly, I don't know the extent in terms of audiology.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to speak with an ENT doctor before I went to Canada, and she told me that there are 125 ENTs in the country, but I'm still not clear with audiology. It sounds like I'm the only one. So the ENT doctors are doing basically the job of both professions, which would be absolutely overwhelming. You know, audiologists are there to assist the ENT doctors, so to assist with figuring out the type of hearing loss, the configuration of hearing loss, whether what this patient is presenting with is something that can be fixed through a surgery. You know, so the concern is if you're working with equipment that perhaps hasn't been calibrated, which was an issue we ran into in Mongolia. They were telling me that their equipment hadn't been checked in a long time, up to 4 years. The proper practice is to have it calibrated annually to make sure it's functioning properly. So, you know, they were aware of some of the issues too. Bless them, their hearts are all in the right place. You know, they're doing the best they can with what they have. And I think that's the same here. So Sister Simone told me that the students at the orphanage have never had a hearing assessment.
Wow.
They are diagnosed as hearing impaired or deaf, basically deaf, because they're not speaking. And again, to me, that is just heartbreaking to think that in 2021, this cluster of children has not had a hearing assessment, but they're deaf, right? So I think the problem there is that they don't have the tools to be assessing infants. Okay. And that's another thing I've been trying to work on. I've been discussing this with, you know, my local colleagues and trying to see what we can do to even try and start an infant hearing screening program here so that children aren't being diagnosed as deaf when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or older because they're not speaking, right? Mm-hmm. Because as an audiologist, I know that the first 2 years are critical for speech and language development. And I'm aware that an organization has come to do some cochlear implant surgery here. I'm trying to find out more about that because the videos I've seen, these children are all older. And again, I know that the outcomes are not as great as children get older and they're implanted older, especially if they were born deaf. Yeah. So there are a lot of, as an audiologist, I look at a lot of this and it's like, how can I help change this, right? And I think, personally, I think that they need to have some Cameroonians sent to train as audiologists. Okay. So whether you go to Canada, the United States, England, Australia, but go somewhere abroad. They are French speaking, many, so it may be that they need to go to France, Belgium, but I've been trying to make connections with anybody who might be interested in establishing scholarships to send some Cameroonians overseas. Because when I was talking about this, someone was asking me if I wanted to have an audiology clinic here and it would be my business, and no, that's not my goal. I think for it to be successful here and to be sustainable, it has to come from within. Yeah. So if we can get some Cameroonians trained and get the equipment on the ground and, do something to get that up and running. I did connect with a lady here whose family has a university. Okay. So I contacted my alma mater, which is Dalhousie University in Halifax, because they helped start an audiology program in China. So I was wondering if they could do something similar here. So I have now put this lady whose family has the university in touch with Dalhousie, and maybe something will happen there. I don't know, but in terms of audiology and hearing health care within the country, I think there's a huge need. Mm-hmm. And I'm only one person.
Exactly, right? There's only so much you can do as one person.
Right. So for me right now, something that I think that could happen quickly is getting these deaf children at least into a better living environment and, decent school. And then ultimately, Sister Simone's dream is to have this expanded. So the entire project includes a health clinic, because they are out of town, sports facility, a beautiful playground for these kids, and a training center because what she would like to see is these kids having skills when they leave, not just being able to read and write, but actual hands-on skills that they could live fairly independent lives once they leave the facility. So her dream is to have lots of sewing machines. So if anyone wants to learn to be a seamstress or a tailor, an area for carpentry, metalwork, things like that, hands-on, where these kids can actually have a developed skill set when they leave the orphanage. So that's a big project. So I'm just working on module 1 right now.
So do you want to share with the viewers that are watching now and the viewers that will watch in the replay about the GoFundMe? I have the GoFundMe link up, so if anybody would like to make a donation, I'm also going to bring up, and we're going to slide over to the side, I'm going to bring up the GoFundMe page so people can actually see the GoFundMe page.
Okay.
It's Go Get Funding, not
the Go Get Funding, yes. The issue with GoFundMe is because I'm in Africa. So Go Get Funding was one that I was able to do from this distance. And I know people aren't always comfortable donating money directly to something, especially since they don't know me. That's why I thought, well, I've been blessed with being, having a publisher who believed in my books. I've got the 15 books published. So the proceeds from a book sale, each book sale will go towards this. So, ultimately it's a win-win. You get a book and hopefully eventually these kids get their new home and school. One thing I do need to mention is I've been very successful selling ebooks, but ebooks do not help, really. They don't. Yeah. I think I sold 165 ebooks and made $1.89 or something like that. So, when you're looking at the cost for this module, as much as I appreciate that people are buying the ebooks, it certainly means a lot to me. It's going to mean an awful lot of ebooks to build this facility. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if people aren't interested in buying a book themselves, but can let teachers know, librarians know, if we could spread this word, I tell 2 friends, they tell 2 friends, then maybe eventually we can make this dream come true for Sister Simone and these beautiful children. I'll share with you that I went on a humanitarian trip to Vietnam in 1997, summer of 1997, and I have never forgotten that trip. They were trying to have a team go down there like Doctors Without Borders, and I ended up being the one who went with them. I managed to get 100 refurbished hearing aids from Starkey, wonderful company. I took down care and maintenance kits, batteries. Some other companies donated equipment for me to take with me. And then I went with basically a film crew from Kwantlen College, with a gentleman named Bob Karkner, rest in peace. He passed away a number of years ago, but Bob was just amazing. He did a lot of global education with youth from Canada, taking them to Guatemala and then to Vietnam. So when he was in Vietnam, he saw that these children at this deaf school were wearing very old, antiquated body hearing aids, and he wondered what he could do to help them. So I went down and basically took these body hearing aids off of them and put ear level on them. And they had a gentleman at the School for the Deaf orphanage there who was making ear molds. Just amazing, the stuff they were doing. And they wanted me to come and check to see if they were doing the hearing tests properly, if they were making the ear molds correctly. They were just doing amazing work. And I still remember when the van drove up into the parking lot and these little faces were pressed up against the window looking at us. And then when I went into the room that they had set aside, I was setting up the equipment and there's these little faces pressed up against the window, just waiting for their turn. I've never forgotten that. It was just such a highlight. And to see these kids and the love of the nuns who were looking after them, But we had one teenage girl, she was not an orphan, but she went to school there. She was deaf. And her dad, she had gone home for the summer. So dad brought her back 200 kilometers to see me. And I took that body hearing aid off of her chest and put ear level on. And her dad picked up Bob and spun him around, hugged him. I mean, the joy was just, and that's the thing, Liz, when I go on different social media and talk about this cause, I've been in rooms on Clubhouse where people have talked about the money that they have to give away. And when I mention this cause, they suggest that I have a music charity event, which to me is like, okay, I'm going to have this loud music charity event to raise money for a deaf school.
Yeah, that doesn't.
That I want to do that. But then they'll support somebody who has a makeup business and is trying to sell more makeup, right?
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it is, okay, so if you're supporting that business, you're going to get some money back, right?
Yeah.
My project, I'm sorry, you're not going to get any money back. The only thing you're going to get is pure, unadulterated joy when you see the faces of these children. I think even the moment that they're told that they're going to have a new home, they're going to have comfortable rooms, they're not going to have to worry about having the windows boarded up because a man is trying to abduct them during the night, that I'm sorry, that's it. It's just
it's the raw truth, right? And that's what we do on Teatime, and that's why I have the Truth Hurts on Teatime, because we need to hear the truth. We need to be really waking our eyes up and really hearing, and that no pun intended with the hearing. But I mean, we really need to start listening. We need to really start changing lives and making a difference. So many people say, I want to change the world. I want to change the world. But then when it's time to change the world, do they step up and change the world?
Well, somebody asked me once if I was publishing books and selling them to become a millionaire. And I said, no, that's not why I did it. I love writing them. I love sharing my stories. And I love seeing children reading them. So I haven't had enough of that shared with me. I do have some pictures of children reading them. And every time I look at them, it makes me smile because I know they're enjoying them. And but the person who asked me that said, but imagine what you could do if you had $1 million. And she's right. That school would have been breaking ground yesterday. I mean, I'm not super rich or anything like that. But I just feel having these books published is my opportunity to pay it forward, and help somebody who is in need. And in this case, it's a group of children who are in need. And honestly, Sister Simone told me that this poultry factory that they're living in it's been basically loaned to them. So she has no idea when they're going to come to her one day and say, I'm sorry, you need to go find another place. And that's kind of scary thinking about that. Where would they go? But no, I just think if she eventually has this really amazing facility for the deaf, we could move more of these kids in there because there apparently are deaf schools all over. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of hearing loss. I'm not aware of them even knowing why. In many developing countries, meningitis causes hearing loss from untreated or chronic middle ear infections. I have done a bit of reading on malaria, and they're looking at whether there's a link with that, because I can tell you most of our local kids who are at our school have had malaria at least once, and many of them have had it more than once. So, and it's, they get pretty sick with it. So is that it? I know a lot of the children at the deaf school have lost parents to AIDS or yellow fever, different illnesses, right? And I am aware that at that one deaf school, they have 4 children from the same family. So there is evidence that there's a genetic component, which is, I'm not surprised, because we had genetic hearing loss in Saudi Arabia. We had genetic hearing loss in Kuwait, and that's the thing. Hearing loss is not selective. It affects us all ages. It affects all cultures, ethnic backgrounds, you name it. It's sadly, it's considered an invisible hearing loss. I honestly have not seen a hearing aid since I've been in Cameroon. Actually, I think I saw one on an older man at the airport when we first came. Wow. but I've certainly not seen any children wearing hearing aids. Even the cochlear implant thing that's happening, I haven't seen any children walking around with cochlear implants. So whether they are just not out in public, because in some cultures, any type of disability is kind of hidden away, which is sad.
Yeah.
But honestly, I notice hearing aids immediately when I see them, and I'm not seeing them. So that's an issue too. Certainly when I was in Saudi Arabia, I said, yes, we're going to start this pediatric hearing aid program. We can get colored hearing aids and we can get fancy ear molds. And, no. My junior staff were like, no. The parents aren't going to want any colored hearing aids. It's like, why not? It makes them so special for the kids. They can have a red one on their right ear and a blue one on their left ear, and they can have an ear mold with swirly colors. And no. But I went ahead and got them anyway. I said, you watch, because we got the hearing aids, so we could actually remove the beige casing and put the beautiful colors on. And the parents said, I don't care what color they are as long as they wear them. I said, there you go. See? And the kids loved choosing the colors they wanted. And, it made it very, very personal, very special, because this is something they're going to be living with all of their life. It's not going to go away.
So, it's not something that does go away.
No, so they need to accept it, make it special. It's a part of who they are. And actually, my first book was written in Kuwait when I was there with the Kuwait Dalhousie Project. We were a large healthcare team, went over there to try and help improve healthcare services, and it is called And So Ahmed Hears. And
oh my goodness.
And it was initially written as a it was originally published as a humanitarian project in Canada by Widex Canada. And it was free to families for a long time. And then people were asking me how they could buy it, where they could buy it. So then it was republished. And so now it can be purchased. But that was amazing when Widex did that. But I wrote that in Kuwait, and the little boy the main character has an Arab name because I wrote it in Kuwait.
Oh, that is so cool. Really, really cool. Well, Dawn, I want to get into a little bit of what makes Dawn's tea. Since we're on tea time, what does tea mean to you, Dawn?
What does tea mean to me? Well, the first thing I think of with tea is relaxation. You're going to sit down with a good book and have a cup of tea.
Read one of Dawn's books, right? Grab a book and do some giggles in that.
I have my tea right here. That's what I think of when I hear tea. Just taking time for yourself. Whether you're chatting with somebody like we're doing, you always think of having a chat with a friend over a cup of tea. So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So now if I give you the letters TEA, what words would you give me for each letter?
For each letter, teach, because I'm a teacher. The last one, the A, I would say acceptance, because of, the diverse populations that I've worked with. And I just feel that you need to try and have a lot of tolerance and acceptance for differences. And I don't like the word disability. I call it a different ability. So people with different abilities. And the E, excel. I think people should try to excel in whatever areas that they can. So try new things. You might be surprised what you can excel at. Another good word for E is empower. So in empowering, I'm trying to help empower these children here who, out of it's not anything they've done that has led them to the situation that they're in, but I'm trying to help to empower them by giving them an opportunity. So I think that's a great word for E.
And that's a strong cup of tea. And this is what we do on Tea Time, is we serve strong tea. Now I'm going to let you know how your tea has been served from your past, your present, and your future by the 3 words that you've given me. You teach, you're a teacher. But when you were young, you probably were a child that wanted to be a teacher. You really got motivated by teaching other people and opening eyes and just sharing and expressing yourself. The excellence and the empowerment. That is exactly what you're doing today. You are empowering people by sharing your story, by bringing a knowledge to people and opening eyes to people that we need to make a difference. We need to make a change. And you're just an everyday lady who came from Canada, who went to Cameroon to make a difference, because that's what you do. You are empowering people and acceptance, the acceptance of the future, that things will change, that there will be a difference. The school will get built. It might not get built tomorrow morning, but it will get built with the push and the motivation of everyone connecting. Small donations make big results. So anybody out there who would like to donate $5, a cup of a tea. Canada's tea is really expensive here. You go to Starbucks, you're paying $5-6 for a cup of tea at Starbucks. So if you can make a $5 donation to help Dawn with her organization, and get this school really built and make a difference for these children, because you just never know what difference you're making by just making small donations, because small does lead to big. And Dawn, you really do serve a strong cup of tea. You do make a difference. You bring laughter to children. You are making that impact in so many people's lives. You are empowering, and the excellence is you're showing that it can be done if you put the work into it. You're showing up, you're stepping up, and you're speaking up. And that I really am grateful that I was an honor to meet you, because I actually met you in Clubhouse. And as soon as I heard you share, I was like, I need her on Teatime. I need to get her story out there, because it's not everybody who wants to make a difference. It's like I said earlier, a lot of people say, I want to change the world, I want to make it different, but they don't step up when it's time to step up. And you are stepping up. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing for all of these children and for people that are having hearing loss and that, because we really need to bring awareness to it. People just don't understand sometimes until they get to educate themselves and get out there, So if anybody would like to reach Dawn, how can they reach you, Dawn? And I'll put up the links as you're mentioning them, so people can reach out to you.
Probably my email is the best.
Okay.
And it's my last name, so doigda@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or if they prefer Yahoo, I'm at Shoe Bears. So that's the name of my character. This is a big shoe bear.
Yeah, I want to get into that little shoe bear, because I want to understand that bear a little bit more. Because when you sent me that, I was like, oh, that's a different logo. That's a different brand. So I want to get into that shoe bear.
This is a character that I started drawing when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
And so anybody who knew me in primary school knew my big shoe bears. And I had back surgery when I was in grade 8, so I had to miss a lot of school, about 6 months of school. And so I started hand making dolls of them. I did a hooked rug for my mom. I made ornaments. I made a candle out of crayon wax. But they became kind of my brand. You're right. It was, everybody just knew Big Shoe Bears and Dawn. Yeah. So the other email is Shoe Bears. So SHOEBEARS @yahoo.com. And I check both of them regularly.
So I found your Facebook. Is that a Facebook page or a personal page that I have up there?
That's one of my book pages. I have a personal one, and then I have 2 that are for my books. Another one is, So
I do my homework. I do try to get out everything that I can find. You're also on Pinterest, and I really want to bring out Pinterest, because a lot of people don't check out Pinterest, but it is a very open site for learning and educating yourself as well. And I was happy that you shared your Pinterest with me, because
but honestly, I don't know how to use Pinterest to its greatest capacity.
But it's nice that you're on there, because it opens that door. Because the ones that are on there, I don't know how to reuse it myself. I have it myself, and I just look for motivational things or educational things that I can find, and that's a lot.
I'm also on Twitter. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I have my own website. And for my website, I really love when people leave comments about what they've seen on there. So, if anybody visits my website, it would be wonderful if they left comments, left some feedback. I really appreciate that. So my website is just www.dawndoig.com. It's very easy. And all my books are on there right now with the multi-links. So again, if someone has a favorite site. One thing I would like to mention, Liz, is my books are not in bookstores right now.
Okay.
The bookstores tend to take the books from the big publishers and the authors who are well known. I'm certainly not well known. I'm still very much in the shadows. But my mother was inquiring about how to buy some of my cookbook this summer because she wanted to give it as gifts. So this is actually a rhyming alphabet cookbook.
Oh, look at that.
Somebody said was a wonderful idea. So there's 26 recipes, and each recipe has a picture and a rhyming little blurb to go with it. But so we went into a Chapters affiliate bookstore in Canada near where she's living, and they said they can order the books in. And from what I understand is if enough people request them, that eventually the bookstores will actually put them on the shelves. So from my understanding, it's the same with Barnes and Noble. So if enough people ask for them, then they'll say, oh, okay, these are popular books. Let's put them on the shelf. A lot of authors do it by having in-store, book signings, go to book fairs. It's not really an option for me over here in Cameroon. Yeah. So just being where I am, living where I'm living, makes it very challenging to get out there and get known. So that's why I've been trying to do more promotion on social media and making wonderful connections like you. I really do appreciate this opportunity to speak and to share not just my books, but the cause here in Cameroon. So thank you again for having me.
Oh, not a problem. I'm honored to have you here because this is what I like. I like everyday people that are making a difference. The big guys it's like you said, our names are not made yet. So people are like, who is she? Right. A lot of people still don't even know who, and I'm pushing doors. Like I'm not playing small. I'm playing big. And I'm just saying, you know what? Look at me. I'm the everyday person that's pushing and making this effort to get it out there.
Well, some of our kids actually say, oh, you're a famous author. Like, no, no, I'm not.
and it's like you said, you don't write to get rich, right? I'm in 4 books and I'm going to be in a 5th one in the spring. And I don't write to get rich. I write to make a difference, to share my story. I'm in anthology, so it's completely different. But I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between writing an adult book and a children's book?
I have not written an adult book yet, so it's really hard for me to comment on that. I did write a novel when I was 13. It hasn't been published. It's really interesting because all of the stories that I wrote for the Christmas Story Contest were always about children with some kind of physical challenge, and then a miracle would happen and they would overcome this. And I'm a monkey collector, so I love gorillas.
Oh, I got the monkey in mine.
I just love them. We try to, if we travel a bit, it's like, oh, are there any monkeys around? And there's actually a monkey sanctuary, a primate sanctuary, 45 minutes from Yaoundé. So I've been there twice. But the novel I wrote when I was 13 was called The Miracle Chimp.
Oh, well, maybe we'll hear about The Miracle Chimp one day. It was
never published. My grandpa used to print it for me, photocopy it for me at his work, and I typed it all on an old typewriter, but I hand wrote it first. I've still got the handwritten in my, grade 8 writing. And then I typed it up, and then my grandpa would photocopy it. It was like, oh, Dawn's going to be published. That didn't happen. Not with that. No, I've had people suggest to me that I do a memoir about my audiology career, because I have definitely had a very fascinating career, very rewarding, but I just think about, who would really want to read it? Do they want to read about the hearing aids with sand in them in Saudi? Do they want to read about me flying around to the Inuit villages way up northern Canada? I did my career has just really been amazing. And even now with teaching Mongolia, the countries that I never would have even thought of going to. My father was a sailor, so I say I inherited his traveling DNA. But he told me I went to countries he never got to. So Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Mongolia. But I just think about it and I think, I don't know how many people would want to read it. So in terms of writing an adult book, I've actually heard people say that writing a picture book is one of the most challenging, because you've got to try and limit the text. I haven't limited the text in all of mine because I felt that the text was necessary to tell the story that I was trying to get out. But some of my books are rhyming, so that can be challenging when you're trying to figure out the right rhyme. But I think in terms of adult books, it would depend what genre. Are you writing horror? Are you writing romance? Are you? I guess you again need to think about what population you're trying to attract, and I think wording in an adult book would be, you'd really have to think a lot about how you're wording it. Not just to make it interesting, but a lot of what I teach my students who are learning English is also using language that is colorful and interesting, so don't use the same words all the time. But yeah, I think with an adult novel, I would probably have to have more of a layout, kind of envision what the chapters would be like. And so personally, I think it would probably take a lot more work. That's not an area that I've dabbled in yet, so it's difficult for me to comment on that. You'd have to ask somebody who, produces a lot of adult fiction, I guess. But when I think of some of the adult fiction I enjoy, James Patterson is one of my favorites, and it's all crime drama. My dad was very much into crime drama, so I don't know if that's where I got it from, but and I enjoyed Diana Gabaldon's series with traveling back in time. So Outlander, do you know the Outlander series?
Yes, I do.
She was apparently a biologist before she became an author. The way that she intertwines, it's historical romance, so there's a lot of romance in there, but there's so much history as well. And from my understanding, she has to do a lot of research before she actually writes the novel, because there's a lot of real life characters in there, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, again, I guess it would depend on the genre really, and I think some people just sit down and write, and others really have to plan it out. I know with some of my books, I've had dreams about them, and I get up and write the story. Because like Lulabelle Loves to Bake, that whole idea of a rhyming alphabet cookbook came to me in a dream. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, I can't.
No,
really...
that's okay. And this is the reason why I asked the question, is because I really wanted to understand, because I want to write a children's book, and I wanted to understand like the difference aspect of it, like how challenging is it to write a child's book, because you do have to watch the texture, you have to watch the language, you have to be really into it and understanding that you're feeding a different audience than you are to adults.
Well, there was an interesting conversation about this on one of the Facebook pages about language in a children's book. And because I teach English to children who are learning English, I do like books where they're not using said,
Okay.
not reading the same words over and over. I mean, that is helpful for very young children, but, for my students who are in grade 4, 5, 6, I like to see, answered, explained, retorted, responded, so that they're seeing all that vocabulary in context as well, right? But with picture books, you want the pictures to also tell a lot of the story, right? Many of mine were not illustrated by me, but I was fortunate to, again, have a publisher where I could look at the illustrations and comment. Even with And So Ahmed Hears, it was illustrated by an illustrator in Canada. But again, even then, Widex sent me all of the illustrations. So if I felt that the illustration was not correctly in showing what I wanted or what I intended, especially for something like this where there's audiology involved, I wanted certain things to look a specific way. I was able to comment on that. And I was lucky because not a lot of some of the bigger publishers, from what I'm understanding, don't do that. So you put the story and they find the illustrator and then you end up seeing it, So no, I've been really lucky that way, and grateful to have a publisher that's allowed me to do that. And then the last 6 I've illustrated myself, so I had complete control over what those look like. But yeah, it's it'd be hard for me to comment on going into the actual adult realm.
Well, I really want to thank you, Dawn, for tuning in today and joining us in the studio for Tea Time and sharing on all of the incredible work that you're doing. Continue to do what you're doing. And if anybody would like to reach out to Dawn, please check out her links. Check out the audio. I will be uploading that shortly. So if you would like to reach out to Dawn at all and you can't see the link for the donations, I will be putting that into the write-ups. So check the write-ups for the donation link as well, because I will be uploading that to audio podcasts after we're done this live. And I really would like you all to just consider donating a small donation of $5, cup of tea, the price of a cup of tea, to make a difference in a child's life. And I believe that $5 will go a long way if we all just put in $5. So thank you again, Dawn, for tuning in for Tea Time and sharing, and stay connected. And I will see you again in December for the reunion Tea Time show, where I bring all the guests back for 2021 and get you to introduce yourselves to all of the other Tea Time guests out there. I'm also going to connect you with Mark Williams, who is doing the Pink for Thursday movement. It is to bring awareness for bullying and racism. And I think that you guys would really connect, and maybe your children's books can get out that way. He can maybe get it out, get people to buy books on the bullying story. So again, my biggest thing is connecting all of my Tea Time guests. So if you check out the YouTube channel and there's a Tea Time that resonates with you, please reach out, stay connected, and network with one another, because that's what we do here on Tea Time. So I want to thank everyone who's watching and who will be watching the replay. Please let me know where you're tuning in if you're watching the replay, so I know, so that I can give you a shout out and I know where my audience is coming in from. So I will see everyone September 7th for a new Tea Time, where I'm bringing in Morris. I can't remember your last name for the life of me, Morris, but Morris will be here September 7th with collaboration. I also met him on Clubhouse, and we will be sharing on how we can open doors for his project as well and get people connected. So I believe, Dawn, that you know Morris. I think that's where we met, in one of his rooms. So
is it Morris the Connector?
No, Morris Connector was already on Tea Time, but this is a different Morris. This was the one, I believe, that you came in where It Takes a Village.
So he's doing the farms. Is he the one doing the farms?
I believe so. Yes. Okay. Yes. So he'll be
That's
on.
The thing I say too, Liz, is there's so much need, right?
Yes.
So how people choose what they were passionate about, what they would like to support when there are so many causes, right? There's so much need in the world. So yeah.
So thank you so much for tuning in, Dawn. And I will be giving you a copy of this within an hour, so you can get it onto all of your platforms or wherever you need to get it and share it.
Thank you so much.
We will get that school built. Maybe not tomorrow, but we will get it built together. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you to all the viewers that tuned in today and left your comments. I did see them. I got really into the conversation because this is a subject that is very close to my heart. So again, thank you all. Please let me know where you're tuning in from if you're doing the replay, and we will see you September 7th with a new Tea Time, and we will make a difference one cup of tea at a time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night.